No one expects to fall in love in the break room. Especially not Amelia Hartwell, 32, brilliant, sharp, and the reigning CEO of HelixCore Technologies, one of Seattle's most promising AI startups. She commanded boardrooms and brokered deals. With the same ease she dismissed small talk. Her life was calculated by the hour, by the goal, by the projection. Romance? That belonged in other people's lives, not hers. Not after what happened with Connor, her ex-fiancé and ex-CFO who nearly sank the company. But then came the janitor. He was always there early mornings, silent evenings, pushing his mop along the polished marble floors like a ghost with purpose. He wore a gray jumpsuit with Luca embroidered on the chest. That was all anyone ever knew. Luca, no last name, no chatter. No eye contact, unless it was necessary. He didn't smile often, but when he did once, briefly, when he handed a paper to a crying intern, it was the kind of smile that said, "You're safe." Amelia noticed him. She hated herself for it at first. "What are you doing?" She'd whisper internally as she found herself watching the security camera footage, just to see when he arrived. It wasn't love. Not yet. It was curiosity. Who was he? Why did someone with that posture, that stillness, that constant awareness of his surroundings, settle for mopping floors? It wasn't until the day the coffee machine exploded that they actually spoke. Amelia had just come out of a tense investor call. Her nerves frayed. She leaned over the machine to grab her espresso, but a sudden hiss and sputter sent a stream of hot liquid all over her ivory blouse. She cursed, stepping back, grabbing napkins, uselessly dabbing the stain. That's when he appeared, silently, handing her a cold bottle of water. "For the burn," he said. She blinked. It's fine." He set down the bottle. Then from the utility belt slung under his jacket, he pulled out a small sewing kit. "For the blouse." "If you're presenting today," Amelia stared at him. "Do you always carry this?" He nodded. "Some habits are hard to break. And what habit is this?" She asked, only half joking. "I used to patch uniforms," he said quietly. And then, just like that, he disappeared back down the hall. That night Amelia couldn't sleep. Who was this man? He wasn't a regular janitor. She knew that now, and she was going to find out the following days. Amelia found herself arriving at the office earlier than usual, not because of deadlines, but to catch a glimpse of Luca. He was always there before sunrise, methodically cleaning the main lobby before the rush of the tech staff poured in. He never looked up, never lingered, and yet somehow, he always knew she was there. One morning, she brought 2 coffees instead of 1 and left one on the edge of the reception desk without a word. When she returned from her meeting 2 hours later, the cup was gone. Nothing was said. But the next day, there were 2 cups waiting hers labeled E in perfect handwriting. No one else seemed to notice. To them, Luca was just part of the background, forgettable. But to her, he was becoming a pattern, an invisible rhythm in her chaotic world. Amelia tried looking him up in the employee system, but all she found was a single entry: Luca. Facilities, contractor. No last name, no personal details. The cleaning company listed in the file didn't exist anymore. That was the first red flag. Then there were the other signs. The way he always knew which elevator was about to break down. The time the fire alarm system glitched, and somehow, Luca had already evacuated half the floor before anyone else noticed. The moment he grabbed a falling server tower with one hand and gently lowered it to the ground like someone who had trained their entire life for quick reaction. It didn't add up. She asked Raj from IT to check building access logs. Luca didn't use a keycard. Ever. No digital trail. He simply appeared. Late one evening when most of the team had gone home and the floor was dim with only the ambient glow of screensavers, Amelia walked past the glass hallway and noticed something. Luca wasn't cleaning. He was standing perfectly still in front of the massive touchscreen boardroom display, reading slides from a classified product demo presentation left open. He wasn't just glancing. He understood. She stepped into the room quickly. "You're not supposed to be in here." He didn't flinch, didn't apologize. He simply turned, looked at her and said, "Your algorithm's bias ratio is still too high. That data model row 4, it's reinforcing the flaw." Amelia blinked. "What did you just say?" He motioned to the chart behind him. "You already know it. But the correction's in the data set, not the code. You're feeding it old assumptions." She stared at him, her heart racing. "No janitor should know that. Who are you?" Luca lowered his eyes. "Someone who used to know a lot of things. Now I clean floors, that's all." But that wasn't all. Amelia knew it. Asterisk asterisk, Amelia didn't sleep that night. Her mind replayed Luca's words again and again, his understanding of the algorithm, his calm tone, the way he carried himself like someone who had nothing to prove and everything to hide. By morning, she made a decision. She would find out who he was. She started quietly. A favor here, a question there. Amelia reached out to contacts in government tech contracts, then to private security firms, and finally to a friend who had once worked for a European intelligence contractor. All of them gave her the same answer. No match, no one by that name. If he exists, he's off-grid. Off-grid, that wasn't nothing. That was something big. The next week, Luca didn't show up. For 2 days. The janitorial duties were taken over by a temp who couldn't find the server room, let alone mop a floor properly. Amelia noticed the tension in her chest when she didn't see him. It wasn't just curiosity anymore. It was something deeper, something irrational. And that scared her. Then on the 3rd day, she found a note folded in the crease of her office. "Chair, if you want answers, meet me on the rooftop. Midnight, come alone." She almost didn't go. But she did. The rooftop was cold and silent, lit only by the distant haze of city lights. Luca stood there, his back to her, looking out over Seattle like he had known the skyline from another life. "You said you wanted to know who I am," he said without turning. "I do," Amelia answered, her voice firmer than she felt. He finally turned to face her, and for the first time, she saw at his eyes. Not just the color, but the history in them, haunted, focused, like someone who had lived 3 lives and survived them all. "My real name is Luca Arden," he said. "Formerly of the European Special Reconnaissance Group. I wasn't just a soldier, I was trained in cyber ops, intelligence, tactical negotiation, deep language immersion. I spent 15 years in war zones and diplomatic shadows." Amelia's breath caught. "Why are you here then? Why my company? Why mopping floors?" He smiled, and it wasn't bitter. It was sad, because after my last mission, they left me behind. Not literally, I made it back. But I lost everything. My team, my purpose, my trust in governments. I needed silence. I needed to disappear. And Helix Core was quiet. At least until I saw your demo in 2021, she blinked. "Wait, you knew about us back then?" "I was watching," he said. "I liked what I saw. A CEO who didn't fake smile. A company that didn't lie on its own press releases. So, I cleaned floors. I stayed invisible, but I'd been listening. And you're building something dangerous, Amelia." She stepped back. "Dangerous?" "Not on purpose," Luca said. "But the algorithm, it can be twisted. If someone from defense contractors or foreign buyers gets it, it won't be about AI for accessibility or medical modeling. It'll be for control." Amelia felt her knees weaken. He walked closer, not threatening, just steady. "You need to know what's coming. And you need someone who knows how the game is played in the shadows." She swallowed hard. "And you're offering yourself?" "I'm offering the truth," Luca said. "And the choice is yours." Amelia stood in silence for a long moment. the cold rooftop wind whipping against her coat as she stared at Luca, no longer the janitor, no longer just a quiet man in the background, but someone with a past that could rival any spy thriller. Her mind spun. The data, the algorithm, the warning, it was too much. And yet, deep down, she knew he was right. She'd suspected that their latest AI model had vulnerabilities, but she hadn't realized how exposed they truly were. She crossed her arms, more to steady herself than anything else. "If this is true," she said slowly, "then I need to know everything. No more shadows, Luca," he nodded. "Then meet me tomorrow. Noon, Pier 14. And just like that, he was gone again. Like a whisper. The next day, Amelia found herself parked discreetly near the rusted warehouse at Pier 14, a location once used by tech startups for drone testing, now mostly abandoned. Luca was already there, sitting on a crate like he belonged to the stillness of the world. He handed her a black folder, the kind that didn't exist in any digital system. Inside were photos, emails, internal memos, one of the company's own. Investors Richard Vail had been quietly reaching out to buyers overseas. Not just tech investors, but entities tied to military regimes. Her stomach turned as she read more. Some of the data from their AI beta model had already been leaked. She recognized parts of it, prototypes she hadn't approved. "You gathered all this?" she asked, still flipping through the files. Luca gave a quiet nod. "And there's more. He's planning to push for a merger next quarter. Force your board into a decision. The buyers are waiting." Amelia felt sick. Her hands trembled slightly as she closed the folder. "Why help me?" He looked at her, long and hard. "Because I owe this world a better ending than the one I was trained to deliver." Those words settled in her chest like a puzzle piece falling into place. Luca wasn't just trying to disappear. He was trying to redeem something. Himself, maybe. The world. Or the lives he'd taken. From that day forward, Amelia let him in quietly. Not as an employee, not officially, but as someone she trusted in the most unexpected way. They met after hours, going over strategies, watching board votes, identifying threats inside the company that she never knew existed. Luca moved through the corporate halls like a shadow with purpose, guiding her, protecting her, even challenging her decisions. And in those late hours, over shared meals and whispered conversations, something else happened too. They grew closer, not in a rushed or romantic way, but in the kind of closeness that builds between two people who have stared into the same kind of void and come back alive. Amelia found herself asking about his past, what he missed, what he feared. He told her about a brother he hadn't spoken to in a decade, about a mission in Istanbul that left a scar on his back and another in his mind. And Amelia, in return, told him about her father, a software engineer who died before seeing her graduate, about the betrayal from Connor, the man she thought would build a life with her and instead almost destroyed her company. They didn't need to say the word love. It hovered there, unspoken but present, in the way he made sure her office lights were on when she arrived, in the way she brought him tea with 2 sugars, even though he never asked, in the way their silences grew longer but more comfortable. Then the threat became real. Vail made his move. Asterisk. The crisis began with a leak. Not just any leak, but a full release of Helix Core's internal AI prototype files, datasets, code structure, vulnerability mappings, posted anonymously on a dark web server and picked up by 3 international blogs within 24 hours. The headlines spread like wildfire. Helix Core AI model being secretly pitched to foreign defense sectors. And just like that, everything Amelia had built teetered on collapse. The board called an emergency meeting. Investors froze there. Funding. The press camped outside the building. And inside the walls of Helix Core, panic quietly grew. Luca stayed close but invisible, guiding her steps without taking credit. Amelia, still reeling from the leak, confronted Richard Vail in front. Of the full board. You sold us out, she said, holding up the folder Luca had given her. Here's your name on the metadata of the leaked documents. Here are the emails proof that you tried to pitch HelixCore's AI to a foreign private military contractor. Vale laughed it off at first, calling it doctored and fabricated. But when Amelia brought up the company log showing him accessing confidential folders from an unapproved terminal, his face shifted. Still, the damage was done. His allies on the board backed away, denying knowledge, throwing him under the bus, but it wasn't over. That night, someone broke into Amelia's condo. It wasn't random. They didn't take anything. They just left a message, her office papers, torn, and a single phrase carved into her kitchen table. Stop digging. She called Luca. He was there within minutes, checking every lock, every window, every motion sensor she didn't even know she had. You're not safe here anymore, he said. You're coming with me. She didn't argue. He drove her in silence to a small cabin, 2 hours outside the city off-grid. Minimal tech, surrounded by dense forest and silence. That night, Amelia sat by the fire, wrapped in a thick sweater, watching Luca make tea in the dim kitchen light. Why are you doing all this for me? She asked. Luca looked at her, then away. Because when I was living like a ghost, you saw me. And now that the world wants to erase you, I won't let it. She didn't speak. She simply stood, walked toward him, and for the first time, rested her head gently on his chest. There were no words. Just the sound of rain on the roof, her heartbeat slowing, and the feeling that, for the first time in a long time, she was safe, even in the chaos. But peace never lasts. At dawn, Luca got a call from a source he hadn't contacted in years. The foreign buyers that Vale had courted, they were still coming. And they wanted Amelia silenced. Not just discredited. Eliminated. Double quotes. Pack your things, he said, calmly but with urgency. We're not hiding anymore. Asterisk. The forest road was still wet from the morning rain as Luca and Amelia drove back to the city, no longer hiding, no longer playing defense. They had a plan now. A final move to not only clear Amelia's name, but expose the entire web of corruption that had reached beyond HelixCore. Luca had made contact with an old ally, Nadia, a cyber intel analyst from his special ops days, now working deep inside an international watchdog group. With her help, they prepared a digital dossier, encrypted files, transaction records, hidden audio recordings, proof of the illicit buyers behind Vale's plot and the other names involved, including a U.S. senator and a defense contractor CEO. But as they returned to HelixCore headquarters, something was wrong. Police cars, media trucks, yellow tape. The building had been evacuated. A false bomb threat. Luca narrowed his eyes. Classic distraction. They're buying time to wipe the servers. He led Amelia through a side entrance, one only a few engineers knew about. Inside, the security system was already offline, and the data room lights flickered like a dying pulse. Someone was inside, working fast. Luca didn't hesitate. He moved like a shadow, disarming the man with swift, practiced precision. Amelia stood frozen, watching the man gasp for air under Luca's knee. It wasn't just his strength, it was the focus, the restraint. This wasn't a janitor. This was someone who had walked into fire and learned to carry it. Once the man was detained, Luca plugged in a drive. Backup's complete, he said. Let's finish this. They took the evidence straight to the press and regulators. No more back channels, no more silence. Within 72 hours, the story had exploded across every news outlet in the country. Vale was arrested. The foreign buyers were exposed. HelixCore's stock plummeted briefly, then soared, as the company was praised for its transparency and for purging internal corruption. But more than that, Amelia's name was cleared. She stood on stage a week later, addressing her staff. Behind her, Luca waited in the wings, not as a janitor, not as a spy, but simply as someone who had chosen to Stay. He didn't need a title. He didn't want one. After the applause faded and the cameras turned away, Amelia found him on the rooftop, their rooftop. "You know," she said softly, "the board wants to hire you as head of security." He smiled. "I'd rather mop the floors." She stepped closer. "Then mop them with me." Luca looked at her, something unspoken passing between them. And then, with the city glowing behind them and a future neither of them had planned for, he leaned in and kissed her, gently, with the kind of tenderness that only comes after surviving war, betrayal, and the quiet miracle of being seen. It wasn't just love. It was understanding. Two lives broken and mended, finding a path forward together.